For my selected media, I chose the movie The Help. This movie was first released in 2011 following the release of the book it was based off of in 2009. But it was recently added to Netflix in 2020 and quickly found its way onto the top 10 list upon being released on Netflix. So I thought it would be good to bring it up and discuss why this might not be the best movie to watch to educate yourself about Black lives and support Black voices in the current political climate. I think that The Help is a movie that maybe a lot of people have seen and possibly enjoyed, but never really looked into. The movie is very entertaining and the cast is wonderful. You get drawn in, and a lot of people I've talked to about this movie have really enjoyed it. But when you look more critically at the movie, thinking about things like racism, oppression, and privilege that we've discussed in class, you'll find that it is not very factual, makes statements that make segregation and Jim Crow seem less scary and terrible than it was, and perpetuates something known as the white savior trope. So The Help is a movie about Black maids living in Jackson, Mississippi in the early 1960s, working for white women, white families. They take care of their houses, cook, clean, and raise their children, but aren't treated very well. A big part of the movie is that there's one white woman who started a racist movement in the town to build separate bathrooms for the help outside of white homes so that they don't use the same toilet as them. This feeds into the oppression of Black people in the movie. A main character of this movie is Skeeter, who is a white woman. She's single, just came back from college, and wants to be a writer. She sees the mistreatment of these Black maids and decides she wants to write a story about them and what they go through from their perspective. She recruits one maid first. The maid's name is Abilene, who is played by Viola Davis, and then another, Minnie, who is played by Octavia Spencer. The book they created is titled The Help, and it gets published at the end of the movie before Skeeter leaves town to be a writer, leaving Abilene and Minnie behind to deal with the fallout of the book that was written in the 1960s, a very racial time. It would cause a lot of tensions, obviously. So the story is narrated by Viola Davis, but oftentimes the plot centers more around Skeeter and the white woman in the story. So one of the problems that I think a lot of people have when watching this movie is that it seems to be presented as if it's based on a true story. But it's important to recognize that not only is it not based on a true story, it was actually written by a white woman, and the movie was directed by a white man with no input from any Black people or Black historians or writers. It was casted pretty well with Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis as the Black leads, but as you'll see in one of my materials, even Viola Davis had a problem with the story and how it portrays Black lives. So the first material I picked is a video explaining the white savior trope. That is very informative. It gives examples of how different movies do this and goes over the effects that the white savior trope has on how people view racism. The next material is a really awesome article from Insider that goes really in depth on the effect of releasing The Help on Netflix in 2020 and how it was problematic that this movie made it to the top 10 list so quickly because it isn't written or directed by Black people and doesn't represent completely accurate depictions of Black lives. So the article discusses the white savior trope as well, but it looks more specifically at how this plays out in the movie The Help. It then brings up Viola Davis's statements on why she regrets acting in The Help before giving a few recommendations for movies actually created by Black people. My third and final material is vastly different from the perspectives of the other two. It is an article written by a white man in 2011 when the movie first came out that argues that The Help isn't racist and doesn't perpetuate stereotypes. It is titled, "Is The Help a Condescending Movie for White Liberals?" Actually, the real condescension is calling it that. So it's definitely a different perspective that helps you see ways people think about the movie. But the main reason that I chose this article is because it was written in 2011. And I think it contrasts well with the Insider article, which was written in 2020. And you get to see like the difference between the political climate in 2011 when Obama was first elected and how it is right now, 2020, 2021, with the police brutality problems and the Black Lives Matter happening and being super prevalent in today's society. You also get to see in this article how the writer combats all of the problems people have brought up about the movie. He does this with very surface level arguments that don't consider the fact that this movie is not a factual representation and doesn't actually have influence from Black writers or Black historians. So then just to briefly go over my questions. Question one talks about how you think the story would be affected if it was a Black woman coming home from college and writing the story about the health, basing it off of her mother and her mother's friends. My second question discusses whether or not you think a mammy-like stereotype that we've discussed before in class was perpetuated in the way Aibileen, a Black woman, raises Mae Mobley, a white child. And lastly, there's a line in the movie where Aibileen states that helping Skeeter write her book is scarier than Jim Crow. What are your thoughts on this statement? And do you think it's more of a joke and should be seen as a joke, or that it shows a lack of understanding of Jim Crow? Thank you.